Good evening, Des Moines. Welcome to the Doc and Lefty program here on webcast1live.com in the plush, well-heated, well-ventilated from conservative fumes studios in the Skywalk in lovely salt-covered Des Moines. My name is Lefty, coming to you as always every Tuesday from 6:30 to 7:30. We're back, folks. We're back from the 2-week hiatus that we went on over the Christmas and New Year's holiday, and I'm here as always with my BMOC, Dr. J. Patrick Petrosh. Doc, how's it going?
It's going great. I hope everybody had a great holiday season. Hope everybody's surviving here in the ice box. It
was bad yesterday.
Oh yeah, I got some information for people. You may not know this. Number one, it's warmer. There's a 50-degree difference between here and Moscow currently.
Yeah, it's cold. It's colder here.
It's colder here. 2, it's colder here than it is in Antarctica. And 3, it's colder here in Des Moines, Iowa, than it is on Mars. So, 1, I don't know how they're figuring out how cold it is on Mars, but I'm going to believe them. 2, it is awful out there. I blame the Canadians because apparently they have this vortex that's under control, and every once in a while when they get mad at us, they turn it loose and it makes us cold. It's
the one piece of bargaining power the Canadians have left.
That's right.
We stopped trading beaver pelts with them back in the 1800s. But here's actually I would blame me, folks, for the cold weather, because my holiday travel consisted of me going to Minneapolis, then down to Northwest Iowa, then back to Des Moines in a big triangle that if you were to overlay my travel plans onto the vortex map that we saw on the Weather Channel the other day, matched it completely perfectly, 100%. So I swirled that up in that big triangle back down to Des Moines and brought the cold weather.
Yep. Is that what happened? You just kept going faster and faster.
I was trying to turn time back to 2006, and everybody liked Democrats is the thing.
Nobody is like Democrats. Nobody likes them. They vote for them out of necessity.
Although, it's because they're the party with
no ideas,
as opposed to the party with
bad ideas.
Exactly.
Speaking of bad ideas, it is a bad idea to let your dogs out for very long without having something on their feet.
Yeah.
Right. You can use mittens, socks. Baby socks work great for this. Make sure they're covered up. Don't let them outside any longer than a minute or two. Good lesson in that. I have a dog named Sybil, and she's low to the ground and very long, and she loves being outside, and she didn't come in. She went outside, did her business, but then wouldn't come in, so I thought it'd be okay. I was washing dishes, looking at her. It wasn't more than 5 minutes between the time I let her out and the time that I had to go get her, and when I picked her up, her poor back legs, because she's a stunty, they were frozen. She couldn't move them very well. Got her foot frostbitten. So be careful with your pets out there. They don't need to be out there too long, but I'll tell you what,
I saw this on the news a couple days ago, just a random report. Some study, probably in Europe, because they seem to have time to do studies like this, studied why dogs spin around before they go number 2 or do.
Yeah, they head north and south or something like that.
Almost consistently, as a rule, dogs head north and south. Now south because they're aligning their spines with the magnetic axis of the world.
Well, but you see, then they would actually from here they'd be heading actually northwest.
But that's what they do.
That's northeast.
It's almost like the correlation was so strong they were comfortable calling it causation.
All right.
I just think that's hilarious.
That is hilarious.
Because it just, that's why your dog infuriates you at 5 o'clock in the morning when you're trying to go to work, and he or she won't do his business or her business.
Oh, wow.
You heard it here first. Or
you
18th. I don't know.
Well, let's start off with the bad news, and we're going to end with good news, because we're doing the opposite.
Yeah, we're usually pretty bad. Well, you know us. It's going to be bad no matter what.
It's because we're discussing politics, and there's nothing worse than that.
We should probably knock it off.
Well, then what were you going to talk about?
I don't know. I mean, have you seen any movies?
Well, no.
Neither have I. All right.
Yeah,
politics it is.
Politics it is. Oh, here's another thing we need to point out. Frank grew a beard, so until he shaves it, we're going to call him Bearded Frank. All right? So Bearded Frank is doing a great job for us. He said he had a great holiday and a great Christmas and everything else, and he said plenty of prayers for his agnostic friend, the Lefty.
That's good.
That's good. Bad news. After the horrific fighting in Fallujah, where hundreds of Marines were casualties, horrific loss of life. One of I think it's the bloodiest battle ever in Iraq. Taliban has just retaken that town, and that's happened within the last few days. So the bottom line is, from my perspective, I'm going to lay the blame at the feet of the president, because number one, you don't ever tell anybody when you're withdrawing, and two, you make sure that the people you're turning it over to are well trained. And that's been part of the problem that America has had over there, is these people are not very willing to be trained. So, the bottom line is the Fallujah is not lost necessarily. It is just the police have just surrounded the town and apparently are letting the Taliban party or do whatever they're doing over there. So that's just a vicious, bloody mess. Point number 2, and after this point, we're going to take a break and come right back. You have to keep in mind that what we're fighting over there is evil. It is evil incarnate. And you can talk about freedom fighters, and you can talk about patriots, and you can talk about all that crap. All I know is these people strap bombs to their kids and detonate them, just like the Viet Cong did to children in Vietnam. Just like a lot of these, just like Che Guevara and Castro sacrificed a lot of people back then. This is all bloody terrorism. These people are evil. And apparently about 60 kids a year get stopped on their way to these bombings. And that is just unconscionable. It's absolutely horrific. So the question is how do you fight them? How do you negotiate with them? How are you able to withdraw your troops and consider a victory when these people are still out there? And it's not like there's just the random whack job, because that's what we have here in the U.S., right? But this coordinated, well-funded effort to sacrifice their children. Now, the articles that I read, they didn't split up how many were male and how many were female. The 2 that they talked about specifically were female. And I just look at this and I think, how can you, as a human being and supposedly God-fearing people, because that's what Sharia law is supposed to be about, that's what they're going for, how are you going to negotiate with these people? They're willing to kill their own kids, not even to win a victory, but just to blow up a police station. That isn't going to get you anywhere or do you any good. So that's my question. And we'll have the answer for that right after the break. We're going to be back right after this, listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
Petrosian Associates, how can I help you?
Petrosh and Associates will provide you with a friendly, caring, and confidential place to find help for mental health concerns. We are ready for your call. Our doctor, Dr. J. Patrick Petrosh, provides a full range of psychiatric services for children, adolescents, and adults in a forthright and informative manner while maintaining a casual, comfortable, and relaxed atmosphere.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Apparently, we have a dark screen. Good deal.
Well, hey, welcome back, everybody. We're talking about the Iraq War and, the remnants, I guess. It's not really the Iraq War anymore. Now it's the Iraqi Civil War. Like there's civil wars in Syria. Like there's a civil war bubbling up in Egypt. Like there's a civil war bubbling up. If you've heard anything, it hasn't broken
Everywhere.
out. It hasn't broken out into conflict yet, but Lebanon is restive again because of the new legislation passed, and the Christians are getting angry, and it just the entire region, honestly, except for Saudi Arabia and Iran, sitting across the Gulf from each other, looking at each other, is boiling, and they're kind of happy to let it play out and see if the Sunnis or the Shia win. That's my 2 cents in this. But I guess I would take issue with just about, everything that you say all the time, obviously. But this one, I mean, so it's Barack Obama's fault that he withdrew troops based on George Bush's timeline pursuant to a popular popular polls and opinions that said the country was done, and that he got pilloried for when he said that he was maybe going to he was trying to renegotiate, and they said no. Hey, he got pilloried for. Let me phrase it this way. So Barack Obama got criticized by the Republicans when he was following George Bush's timeline, basically because they were saying, hey, you know what? He shouldn't take credit for ending the Iraq war because he's doing just what George Bush said he was going to do. And now he's going to get criticized for following George Bush's timeline from the other side of things, saying, well, if he had just showed some backbone and not continued another Bush policy, then Fallujah may not have been taken. Well, I don't think that anybody really believes that. I think you would have seen more American dead. You would have seen more billions spent defending this city, because the city gets taken and retaken all the time. We weren't able to hold it in 91. Saddam Hussein had never been able to really hold it without a severe crackdown constantly. And so it's a city that is contested all the time. So to say that, this administration dropped the ball on something after they'd already been out for 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, first of all.
Okay.
All right. First of all, let's go back. We'll go back. You can't take credit for what somebody else has already set up. That's issue one, period. You can't take credit for that. Number two, I never agreed with George Bush's timeline. If you look at history, particularly American history, you have to maintain troops in that area for a significant amount of time, and significant doesn't mean 10 years. Significant means 50. Look at Germany. All the way up until the 1960s, they had terrorist attacks, or what you could view as terrorist attacks. There's still neo-Nazis there. We still have troops there. Look at what happened in South Korea versus North Korea.
Our troops don't do anything. Our troops are not they don't do anything in Germany. They sit on the base and collect a paycheck.
The fact that
they're not doing what they were doing in Iraq. I don't want to denigrate the people who were stationed in Germany, but they're not fighting the way they're fighting in Iraq and Germany.
But right after the war, that's what they did. You had to, if you go back and you read all the attacks that happened in Germany, they went on for years and years. And if you read about the attacks that went on for a long time after the North-South Koreans got together, nobody in South Korea does anything either. But it's the fact that they have a presence there that helps stabilize the area. The fact, the knowledge that the Americans aren't going anywhere. Iraq and Afghanistan have no such security agreements at this time. Well, I take that back. Iraq has a security agreement with us where we maintain, I think it's a troop level of 50 or 80,000 men. I can't remember the exact number.
They rejected the continuing presence because they wouldn't grant us immunity anymore. Their government made a decision. Our government made a decision. Our voters made a decision when they elected the ostensibly anti-war Barack Obama in 2008. I mean, if we're going to be a country with civilian control of the military, like we are, then they have to be responsive to those, to the political pressure to a certain extent. And so when it comes out that maybe something that could have possibly been prevented in a prospective kind of we don't know sort of way, the blame is on the fighting. It's not on the president.
Well, and you and I disagree on the part that who's responsible. If you're in charge of the military, and I understand your point that they have to respond to the public pressure, but the bottom line is there's public pressure and still is public pressure to get everybody out of South Korea and get everybody out of Germany. It's just one of these things that is now entrenched. The problem is...
Well, South Korea is still an active war.
Well, and that's true.
Different than Germany.
That's still an active one, but
it's different than Germany.
It is different than Germany.
Germany and Japan, they should come home. That's all I'm saying.
And you and I probably agree on that. But the bottom line is, if you look at history, anytime the Americans have left, that country has fallen. Period. All right. You look at Vietnam. We left, they fell.
They had already fallen. I mean,
we didn't have a will. But the bottom line is American troops on the ground. American troops on the ground help secure and stabilize the existing government. All right, and that's just the way, foreign policy is. That's why you don't ever go into That's why you don't go into these situations without a lifetime, long-term commitment because, one, international law says you have to rebuild that country. And number two, everything that you've just spent on that is going to go down the tubes as soon as you leave. And that's part of the problem. Now, when you're the commander-in-chief, the decisions that you make, whether they turn out good or whether they turn out bad, militarily, they're your problem. Now, it didn't turn out well for George Bush. Everybody blames him. This isn't turning out well for Obama. He needs to be taking the blame. That's what I think. I don't think you're going to find a lot of people disagree. Frank certainly isn't disagreeing.
I think that the only people that are blaming the president right now are John McCain and Lindsey Graham and some of those folks. I don't think that Rand Paul has much bad to say about the president's decision. I don't think Ted Cruz probably does. I want to know what folks expected from a Democratic president that ran on shutting down the Iraq War.
I thought he ran on Obamacare.
I'm just throwing
that out
there. In 2008?
Sure, he ran on healthcare
shutting
reform,
down shutting down Guantanamo, healthcare reform, and ending the Iraq War. That's what he ran on, and he was elected. The public didn't want to see any more American troops killed in Iraq. They wanted them brought home. We did that.
All right.
And I mean, then it's all on our collective heads. Then the country as a whole made a decision that we weren't going to support a troop presence in Iraq anymore, and let the Iraqis fight it out as they will. That was the political decision this country made in 2011. Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break. I know we're a little bit ahead of schedule. We'll be back right after that. And everybody tune in. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com. We're here every Tuesday from 6:30, 7:30 p.m. Thank you for tuning in.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Get away from us, you mean old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit! You're our hero!
If Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of America was your personal webmaster, Tom would filter out all bad debt emails. If Tom was your mailman, you'd never get any debt reduction junk mail. If Tom Coates was a lineman, he'd block any phone calls offering to reduce your credit card debt.
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America, and we're still your best choice for credit counseling. We're local, we're accountable, and we can do more. You make the call when the time's right for you.
When it comes to competition, there really is none for Consumer Credit of America.
For you, I'll do it. Hey, welcome back, everybody. This is Lefty with Doc and Lefty. Thanks for tuning in. And you know what? There's two ways that you know you're reaching people. One, when they send you messages that you're doing a great job, keep it up, love the show. And one, when they send you messages saying you're doing a crap job, we hate you, and we hope that you get canceled within a couple of days. Now, since this is a self-funded show for the most part, that's going to be
getting canceled.
We're not going anywhere. So that second consequence may not happen, but I understand over the break that I ruffled some feathers, that I made some people angry with a comment that I made about troops stationed in Germany. That was in no way meant as a slight against the service that our uniformed servicemen and women provide to all kinds of bases around the world. To clarify, the statement was that they're performing a different service than they did in Iraq. And I don't think there's any argument about that. However, I did not mean to suggest in any way that the service that they're performing in Germany is less valuable or less necessary to the functioning of the country and the safety of the American people.
Yeah, that's true, because the troops in Germany are not going out on active combat patrols. And that's a world of difference between Iraq and Afghanistan, where you do have to go out on active combat patrols. You don't have people sniping at your bunker or where you live in Germany, and therefore the rules are different. Plus, the role of of our troops in Germany, Europe, Japan is much different now, and the need is much different.
And a thought that occurred to me that should have occurred to me before I ran my mouth without thinking about it. A lot of those troops that are stationed in Germany get rotated through and go to more hotspots. So a blanket statement about all troops in Germany was insensitive, and I do apologize for that.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Now, we got a lot of good local politic stuff going on. Of course, Tom Latham retiring has really sent a shockwave through, well, just about everybody. Democrats are scrambling around.
I still won't explain exactly what happened. He did an Iowa press interview right after it happened. He was like, well, I'm just done with politics. Well, Tom, boy, 1995, buddy.
Yes.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yes.
But go ahead.
Well, and again, I get back to my point. If this is what he was going to do, why didn't he step out of the way and let our friend of the show, Brad Zahn, have a shot at it, basically, because this is back before the gerrymandering took place, it was part of the Republican Incumbent Protection Program.
Well, there's not really gerrymandering in Iowa, even though I do appreciate the olive branch out there, but Iowa's no one really has much bad to say about Iowa's how they draw their districts.
Well, the gerrymandering process, I mean, compared to some states, is really pretty fair here in Iowa.
Yep, it really is. And go figure, it's a nonpartisan board that selects it and makes it have to be proportional for all demographics and population.
Amazing how that can happen.
Huh, interesting.
So anyway, Tom Latham retired. We talked about that before. There's one of two scenarios. One, either somebody got him doing something and he's just like, I don't want to deal with it, which I don't think is all that likely. Or two,
he's always been a pretty straight shooter.
Or two, he's getting kicked upstairs somehow. Like he's going to take some big cushy job with somebody somewhere. Those are your two scenarios, right? Because that's the only thing that makes sense. Here's this career congressman who really could sit there and, I mean, the guy's what, 66?
Yeah.
64, something like that. So however old he is, he's got at least another 10 years. And he doesn't have to do anything. He just sits around. I mean, nobody's going to kick out Tom Latham.
Nope.
And suddenly he just retires right out of the blue in one of the worst times you could do it. So the Democrats are scrambling to get people together, and I have not heard of any Democratic candidate yet.
No candidate. I haven't heard of any big names declared. I have heard one big name that's been sort of bandied about, if you're ready. For Tom Latham's seat, who would be very interesting.
Democrat?
Yep.
Right. Who?
Her name rhymes with Schmilsack. Christy Vilsack has not. She's not announced or anything. I don't think. At least as of today, I don't think she has. But her name has been sort of speculated in political circles around the state. And you hear some some political reporters from the various papers around the state, Cedar Rapids, Gazette, in the Des Moines Register, all the bigger ones, sort of hinting that maybe she wouldn't do so badly to move back down to Des Moines and run for Tom Latham's old seat.
That would be very interesting because they moved up there to run against Steve King.
They did. Now, put a residence. I mean, those residency requirements have always been sort of cynical, and they've never been very static, and representatives move all the time. I don't think that either one of us would give her too much grief for moving back to Des Moines to run for an open seat. That's something that just happens in politics. But it would be interesting walking into a seat that Leonard Boswell held for so long because of his quote-unquote farm connections to southern Iowa, south of Des Moines. And Latham came in and said, hey, look, I'm kicking the old guy out, and you've known me a little bit because I had the Western Corridor. So Christy Vilsack doesn't have any of those connections. She and Tom came up from Burlington, I believe, the Mount Pleasant area, in southeast Iowa, and that's where their roots are. And so moving up here, I mean, she's known because of her time in the Capitol. But
no, anyway. That Gabriel De La Cerda, is he running? Is he running?
Ed, all I know is that Ed, he's run for something before. Ed Fallon has him on the show frequently. He's kind of a firebrand of a populist Democrat, somebody that the Democratic Party doesn't have a whole lot anymore because the Democratic Party has kind of turned into the Republican Party of the 80s. Just saying.
Yeah.
Kind of we're the big guys on the block, and all the energy is on the Republican Party right now.
Yep.
But he's one of those guys that has he's kind of got a megaphone, but he doesn't have any funding.
Yeah, that's true. So we have some people running. Of course, Mark Young. Is that his name? David Young.
David Young, yep.
David Young immediately jumped ship from the U.S. Senate campaign because, one, he was laying off staff. Nobody was supporting him. And, really he was bombing on the road. And so he decided he was going to come into the third district congressional race, and there's a lot of people talking about people who could potentially run. Tomorrow's a big West Side Conservative Club meeting. I'll probably go to that to figure out, who's really greasing the wheels to try to run. I believe it's Kim Schmidt. He'd run for Congress before. I believe he's interested.
He got pounded, though, I believe.
He did. He got pounded pretty good.
He ran for governor. Didn't Vilsack beat him, Kim Schmidt?
I don't think so. I thought he ran for Congress.
Did he run for Congress?
I thought so.
Gosh, I can't remember. I met him once when I was in law school. Very, very nice guy, but
articulate.
But his political skills, I thought maybe he wasn't ready for prime time.
Yeah, maybe.
Very smart guy too. I don't want to say anything bad against him.
We're going to continue discussing the 3rd Congressional District and its race because it's going to have national implications. We're going to be back right after the break. Thanks everybody for tuning in. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places, especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for, has it been a whole half hour already?
It's been close.
Honestly, I had a feeling that I might have to kick some cobwebs off, and maybe my insensitive comments about the military was part of that, coming back from a 2-week hiatus. But I got to say, I missed talking to you, and this first half hour I thought was pretty good. Not to pat myself on the back. Anyway, I found some quotes about Democratic interest in the 3rd district seat from the Des Moines Register blog. We're talking about possible candidates for Tom Latham's seat for 2014, and the Des Moines Register blog. If you don't look at it for political stuff, you really need to, because it's easier than wading through the paper. Although I personally enjoy doing that every single morning, but it's all right there, and they have a pretty nice mobile site too. So this one should make every Democrat listening to this kind of shrug your shoulders uncomfortably. Governor Chet Culver has expressed interest. He's saying that he's really enjoying his private life, but he hasn't, and I'm quoting here, I'm looking at all the options for 2014. Having said that, it's a long way to go until the election, and I haven't made a final decision. He's thinking about it. If somebody who's a better candidate than Chet Culver gets in the race, he won't, but he's thinking about it. Matt McCoy, he's interested in exploring the area, and I think that he'd be a pretty good candidate for the 3rd. He'd be a strong one. He's pretty popular on Des Moines. Michael Kiernan, he's the former Iowa Democratic Party chair and 2-term Des Moines City Councilman. He's got connections. He's got operatives putting feelers out. And Andy McGuire. Do you know Andy?
No, I don't
know. Dr.
know.
McGuire,
no,
local physician. I don't know him personally. I thought that maybe you guys would run in the same circles. But then 2 confirmed candidates, Stacey Apple of Ackworth and Gabriel De La Cerda of Des Moines. So I don't know much about Stacey. You've met Stacey Apple a couple of times, haven't you?
I have, and I've invited her to come on the show. She's been a little squirrely about it. Her big claim to fame is the texting law that has gained much derision across the nation. And she's touting that as something she accomplished, which is great. But the problem is you need to have an electronics ban, because I can tell you, watching kids drive all the time. I actually saw a guy talking on a cell phone this last summer, riding his crotch rocket. No helmet, no nothing, just talking, chatting. I'm like, you can't wait 2 seconds till you pull over.
People are dumb.
People are dumb. So yeah, I mean,
those are some interesting names on the Democratic side.
It is interesting. Chet Culver is going to be the big name. The problem is he was drummed out of the governorship.
The Democratic. See, the problem is the Democratic Party, like I've said, is nice and fat and established now in a way that they weren't in the early in the late 90s and early 2000s coming out of the Clinton administration. We're not feisty anymore. You made a joke before we started the show that the only way the Democrats get new ideas is taking the rejects from the Republicans, and that's kind of how it's been going lately, because the Republican Party can't make up its mind on what it wants to do. The Democratic Party just picks and chooses and plays the political game and the Republicans just chase each other's tails, and that's no way to run a country long term.
No. Well, on the Republican side, the people that have been mentioned, of course, there's David Young. David Young is going to have a lot of problems trying to convince non-establishment Republicans, and that would be Tea Partiers and the like, that he's a serious candidate. That's been his problem running for Senate. He even has a nod and a nudge from Senator Grassley. But conservatives, non-establishment conservatives, really are rather leery of him since he spent so much time in D.C. Plus, I've listened to him talk, and his basic spiel is, I've been out in D.C., I know how it works, you ought to vote for me. It doesn't take that much to figure out how Washington works. The K Street lobby comes down, gives you a ton of money for your reelection, you vote the way they tell you. That's how Washington works. You don't need to know how it works, and that shouldn't be your battle cry. Number two, there's a lot of people considering runs. Jack Whitfer, a senator from, I believe he's from Ankeny, and I can't. Yes, he's from Ankeny. He's a good guy. I see him all the time. Great family, beautiful children, all-American guy, football player, played professional football in Arena League. This guy's spotless. He would have been a very strong candidate, except he decided not to run and accepted the position of a minority whip in the state Senate, which leaves a couple other people left. One is our good friend of the show, Brad Zahn. And
maybe we could get him on to announce.
I've asked him, but the bottom line is right now, I can tell you what Brad's doing. Brad's out there trying to figure out how he's going to be able to fund his campaign, because a lesson he learned, that we all learned, all Republicans learned the last time around, is you have to be the candidate the establishment wants. Otherwise, they're going to yank all the funding from you.
The Hill on January 2nd said that he's expected to run. So he's looking for money. Yep. Yeah.
So that's what he's doing. He's trying to line people up. A guy named Robert Kramer, and I don't even know if he's Democrat or Republican, but he's seriously considering a run. It says from my source, the Iowa Republican, he is Governor Branstad's pick for the Board of Regents. So I'm assuming he's a Republican, but Terry once in a while goes off the range.
Well, isn't Bob Kramer? Isn't that the guy that got in trouble with the academic freedom over the University of Iowa with the climate change stuff? Isn't that him?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. So anyway, he says it's been tugging at me for years. I never thought the opportunity would present itself. I understand I have to make my decision quickly. This TIR goes on to say Kramer will be formidable in the Republican primary for a number of reasons. He's got support and backing of Uncle Bob, and I think that's going to say Bob Vanderplas. He has backing of Bob.
He says he's not going to.
Oh, Bob Kramer?
Oh no, Bob Vanderplat says he's not going to.
He's not going to run for the 3rd district.
No.
Now they are Bob Vanderplat. A lot of people have been speculating that he may jump into the Senate race. A couple problems with that. Joni Ernst really has a commanding lead as far as money. She has a very military delivery, and that is very quick, it's very efficient, not a lot of passion, right? Now, Matt Whitaker, on the other hand, whether you like him or hate him, he's a dynamic speaker and fun to listen to. So that may be working his, but he's not able to raise a lot of money either.
No, Bob Kramer was the gay marriage guy that got blocked because he. No, that's right.
Yeah. So we have all that going on. People are trying to figure out who's going to run. Jack Hatch is running against Branstad. At this point, it looks like Branstad is going to stomp on him like an old, I don't know, like dog poo on the street or something.
Oh, my.
So no offense to Jack Hatch, but Branstad's already raised $4 million, has $4 million in cash on hand. Jack Hatch doesn't have nearly that much. Plus, they had a big distraction with the other guy that was running for Tyler Olson was running for governor on the Democratic side, and he just kind of blew himself up. Apparently he had an affair, he had a problem with a staffer, something like that.
That I didn't heard about.
And then he just said, "Well, I'm getting divorced," and all this other stuff. Now, I don't know what's made the news, and I may have just repeated rumors. And if I've gotten it wrong, I apologize in advance because I don't want to besmirch anybody. But the fact of the matter is, Tyler Olson had a kind of a meltdown in his campaign, got divorced in the middle of it, and has decided, well, I'm just going to take care of family business. So that's really what's going on in the state of politics. This is why you need to know this. One, I don't think the Republicans are going to retain as many seats as what they think they are. They have a great way of shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly, time after time after time, particularly Tea Partiers going over after people who don't think exactly the way they think. All right? Now, I like the Tea Party. I respect what these guys say, but the bottom line is you can't keep taking out your big horse. If you're in a race, if you're in a chariot race, you don't shoot your lead horse in the head, right? You keep them in line. You try to get him under control and utilize the other horses to corral him where he's going, number one. Number two, the Libertarians. The Libertarians, especially in Iowa, are a little bit crazy. And even though I appreciate where the Libertarians come, and I have even said, geez, I'm much more Libertarian than any other part of our party, you have to get your act together and make sure that you back the right candidates. You can't just blanketly, as a blanket, give out all the money that everybody's given to the Iowa GOP in equal doses. You have to pick the person who you think's got the best chance at winning, or more importantly, the seat that you need, and back that horse. That's what happened with Mike Brown and John Forbes.
Yep.
If Mike Brown had gotten the money that he had counted on from the Iowa GOP, I think maybe the results would have been the same, but at least he would have fought a closer fight, and there was a good chance, particularly in the middle of the summer, that Mike Brown could have beat him. But when your newly elected chairman goes, everybody gets $500, $500 in a campaign that's costing you $400,000 isn't going to help anybody anywhere. So we all have to get our act together, start pulling that wagon in the same direction, and fight amongst ourselves, but don't shoot that lead horse. We're going to be back right after break. You're listening to Doc and Lefty on webcast1live.com.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program, or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
Whether you're 10, 25, 50, 80 years old and beyond, everyone needs to live within their means. I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of America. For almost a quarter of a century, we've helped people of all ages learn to manage their personal finances to benefit them far into the future. When problems arise, we've got the experience you need to make those debt problems go away. Got financial problems? Call Consumer Credit of America.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Thanks for sticking around for the last few segments of the show. As always, this is Doc and Lefty. We're here every Tuesday night from 6:30 to 7:30. Want to really thank all of our sponsors, Bertrosh & Associates, my law firm, Labinas Law Firm, PLLC, and all of the webcast1live.com sponsors that we have. I don't know, Polk County GOP.
I forgot about that. We have the caucuses coming up.
That we do.
On January 21st. They've asked me to be a precinct chairman, but that's the night of the show.
Oh, my.
So
the 2014 caucuses are on the night of the show?
Yeah.
How did we might have to do a live remote if we could work that out.
Oh, yeah.
Stay tuned, folks. We got a couple of weeks to plan this.
You bet. Bearded Frank, get on that.
So anyway, so we've been discussing the last few minutes about all the local stuff that's going on, all the statewide stuff that's going on. Des Moines is always interesting because Des Moines is where the action is in Iowa. And we haven't really even touched on the Senate race. I was listening to some reporting about some of the Senate candidates from one of the political reporters out east. I think he was from the Cedar Rapids Gazette, but don't quote me on that. I don't remember his name, but he was sort of editorializing a little bit on Iowa Public Radio that, hey, it's great to have these Republican candidates out there, but they seem disorganized the party seems disorganized behind which one to back, and the candidates themselves don't seem like they're ready to face Bruce Braley one-on-one, head-to-head in an election grind in 2014. What's your take on that?
Well, that would be, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of things that go into a campaign, and money's number one. And so as far as money goes, Joni Ernst is the one that's in the best position. Of course, there's always problems. People always nitpick this and nitpick that. Mm-hmm. But, as far as the last reporting, now there's another reporting quarter coming up, so that will really tell us what had happened. But she had raised close to $500,000 in the first 6 months of her campaign, something like that, and nobody else is even close. Matt Whitaker, who was an assistant attorney general, isn't that what he did? Assistant U.S. Attorney General? No,
he was. Oh, are you talking about Matt Whitaker?
Matt Whitaker.
No, he was the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District.
All right, so
he was the big boss.
Yeah, so this guy's a big boss. He's got some guns behind him. He's got his own law firm making money hand over fist because apparently you can't make money as a doctor anymore. Only lawyers are allowed to. Yeah, there you go. Give him the thumbs up again. Bearded Frank wasn't paying attention to you.
No, that's okay. Thumbs up.
Oh, now you have to do it again.
Well, no, you know what they always said, right?
What?
Feed a lawyer, go to med school.
Yeah, that's right. That's absolutely right. So he's a person that is a high school or a college football hero, played at the University of Iowa. He is a physically imposing individual. Now, I can't speak to whether or not he's good looking or not, but I haven't heard anybody say how he's good looking. But he is a dynamic speaker, so he has that going for him. But most of the money that he's raised, he's given to his own campaign. Of course, David Young dropped out, and Sam Clovis, who I think is the most well-spoken in the group, really hasn't gained any traction. He's a darling among the very right people. The problem is he's not getting any money. He's not getting the big name donors, and so that's just it.
He's a victim of his own local notoriety. Sam Clovis is very famous in Northwest Iowa, my old stomping grounds, and folks that I am still in contact with, and conservatives that I'm friends with, just conventionally and on social media, are very excited about him. But he has no play outside of Northwest Iowa. He would be equivalent to a Steve Deace, although Steve Deace has got more statewide recognition.
Yeah, that's probably true.
And I think that that has really hurt him. And plus, in a statewide election, a rah-rah, very predictable conservative platform that he's done, red meat after red meat, gun rights card, concealed carry, just throwing all that stuff out there to really jazz up the people that come and listen to his speeches. In a statewide, that's not going to play in Dubuque. It's not going to play in Cedar Rapids. It's only going to play with portions of Des Moines, and Des Moines is what he's got to carry. Yeah. He would lock down Dallas County West. That's fine, but there's a whole lot more state east Dallas County.
And I would agree. Now, the other thing is, and I always hate to bring this up, voters are visual. And one of the things I did when I remember I went out and was trying to lose a ton of weight and everything else when I ran. Listen, I'm still a big fat guy, but at least I was out there trying. And the problem is you put him up against somebody like Matt Whitaker or even Joni Ernst.
Or Bruce Braley.
Braley, people are going to say that tired old thing. It's just some other fat white guy trying to tell us what to do. Mm-hmm. I've actually heard that from other liberal friends. and it's just one of those things.
And I wonder how, Matt Whitaker's a former Iowa Hawkeye. I sort of wonder how he would do in Story County, but that's just, I'll ask him sometime.
Yeah. Well, he's a conservative and a Hawkeye, so I'm pretty betting he's not going to carry that one.
Yeah, Story County might have a problem with that.
Yeah, you bet. So, you have a lot of things. And the reason this is all important, Republicans are not going to hold the House seats that they think they're going to hold.
They're not going to take back the Senate. They're just not. Even with all the Democratic defections this year, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. But what do you think?
Well, I think it's going to be really tough. I think that our best chance to beat Braley was going to be Tom Latham. We talked about that a couple of times. We have Joni Ernst, and I think she is capable of getting people motivated, and she does have a fairly good network. The problem is when you're spending money on staff, that means you're not spending money advertising. You're not getting your word out. And you can't have all the staff you want because you don't have the money for that. So you wind up driving yourself a lot of these places, which cuts away time that you have. That's part of that disorganization, Mm-hmm. And plus, think about, I think somewhere around $700,000 has been raised for on the Republican side in total. It's split 7 ways or 6 ways, right? So you're talking maybe $125,000 a piece. Joni's got most of it. There's not a lot of people are standing back not financing it. The reason it's important for the Senate is I've already established that Republicans are not going to defend Obamacare. They're just not. The reason is they've already placed their bets in the stock market, and they want the people that support the Obamacare regime to go forward so that way they can make money. I'm just telling you up front. And I'll defend that to the day I die. The second thing is Ed sent out a newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
You ever get it?
Yep, I do.
One of them said, geez, is there any difference between Democrats and Republicans? Yeah, well, yeah, there is. Republicans at least talk about giving some of your money back. And number 2, at least some of us, Republicans that are elected, live the way they believe in what they say, right? At least you get that. Now, I had a great deal of respect for Joe Lieberman. I actually have a great deal of respect for Joe Biden because Joe Biden is at least honest with where he's coming from. He is a stand-up guy, I think.
He's not a millionaire. Not even close. He paid his house off and he rode the train every day.
Yeah.
And those are verifiable.
So, but the bottom line is the Senate has to take it back so that we can start working on deficit and debt reduction. The thing is, Democrats always raise taxes. They always figure out a way to raise taxes. We've raised taxes enough. We have the largest tax increase in history. We now need to start cutting, and Democrats just historically don't do a lot when it comes to cutting unless their feet are held to the fire. We always talk about how great the Clinton years were. Well, Newt Gingrich held his feet to the fire and said, here's what we're passing. And that, in essence, is what happened. Back when
on welfare. He made
the contract with America went all the way through that.
The contract with America didn't do everything that it was supposed to do, and it
worked damn good.
It wasn't implemented. The contract with America wasn't implemented. Everything
was passed had a bill drawn up and was passed except for the amendment number 10, which I think was
It's always fun. Now I know that you and Newt are good buddies now, but it's always fun to see Republicans talk about Newt in glowing terms when they couldn't wait to get rid of him back in the 90s. I'll leave it there.
Well, and that's true.
What I was going to say about the deficit's going down. We're shrinking the deficit as it is right now. The deficit's at its lowest than it has been in a long time. That's shrinking. The debt is tough. It's tough, but that's a long-term problem, and generally economists agree on that it's employment that's still the biggest issue, and neither the Republicans nor the Democrats can get together and figure out what needs to be done on employment to get big companies. The small businesses are hiring. My small business is not right now, but that's because it's me and one other guy. But small businesses have been hiring for a while at this point at pretty low rates. It's the big companies that have a lot of spots open who are sitting on their cash because they don't know what this Congress is going to do with anything. And that has less to do with whether Republicans' ideas are better or Democratic ideas are better. It's that the two sides won't talk to each other and they're being idiots. I don't think that you can argue with that.
Well, yeah.
There's a lot of uncertainty, and corporations are not reinvesting their money in increasing their workforces. That's a big reason. Another reason is automation and technology.
Well, the other thing is if small businesses are what drive jobs. And you can talk about big corporations all you want. You could shut them all down. You could have let Chrysler and GM go belly up, and it still wouldn't have had the impact that all these businesses shutting down has had. We focus on that because that's easy to quantify, but all you have to do is drive down Hickman Road in Urbandale, where 5 years ago, every mall was stuffed full of people coming in and out, businesses, hardly any leasing space was available. I tried to move my office that year, and my option was to move next door to the other building because there was one space left that was halfway affordable.
Right, but people weren't buying anything. I mean, I don't know if you saw, maybe people are, they definitely need legal and medical services when times are tough still. I mean, our industries are fairly recession proof. We get hurt like
well, how about
everybody
this?
else,
2007. Were people buying things in 2007?
No, they were not.
So 2006, were they buying things?
2006, they were.
All right. So 2006, people were buying things and you couldn't find a space to rent. 2008, I say that they were buying things and you still couldn't find a space to rent. 2009, people stopped buying things. 2010, suddenly you have half.
Yeah.
And I'm talking half of the rental spaces are available because all the businesses shut down. Every single business that shut down, you're talking and affected at least 2 to 3 people. That's just a 4-mile strip of real estate in Des Moines, Iowa. Imagine what's happened around the rest of the country, and we haven't had it nearly as bad as the rest of the country has had.
Nope. No, Iowa's not. But that's a demand problem. Anytime a business can go under for several reasons, and it can be complicated. But the central problem that people cite for what happened in 07 to 2010, and actually continuing on into 2013 and 2014, is demand sunk. Everybody started paying their debts down. And that's the problem, is that, hey, you know what? All our money is going to go to the credit card because we've been running the credit card up too much, or trying to save our rear ends from our underwater house. And credit card companies don't make anything, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, credit card companies, they make bills. That's what they do. They give you money to purchase things, but when you stop purchasing things, they're not going to come in and build that car for you. And so when you talk about letting GM and Chrysler, I mean, Chrysler did go under, got bought bought by somebody else. But when you talk about GM going under, that ripple effect it was terrifying. That means that your auto parts store, your suppliers to the plants, the repair shops, all of the dealerships that are attached to because that's the big problem with or not the big problem, that's the big octopus issue that happens with car manufacturers, is that these dealers are linked to the car manufacturers, so the dealerships start going on. You saw GM plant or GM dealer after GM dealer and Chrysler dealer after when I drove that awful PT Cruiser for all those years, my dealership on Merle Hay, the only Chrysler dealership in the Des Moines area, closed. And I had to go to Stu Hansen out in Waukee because he was picking up all the Chryslers. But the Chrysler dealership closed. Yeah. And that's what happens.
Well, the problem is this is a domino effect.
Yep.
You had a contraction of the economy. Blame whoever you want to blame. People started losing their jobs. People stopped going out to buy stuff. This thing continued to today. I can tell you the number one reason I don't hire people, taxes. Payroll taxes are outlandish. We now have another payroll tax in Obamacare. There's just too much. There isn't enough profit margin out there unless you just stick it to your employees. I will tell you, I could replace my employees now with people that would be glad to work for me for about a third of what I'm paying, or for 2/3 of what I'm paying my staff. I happen to have a good office. I happen to like my staff, but that's a decision that I had to make. I can't hire somebody else to meet all the new regulations from Obamacare. So the bottom line is neither side has come up with a definitive solution for it. The definitive solution is reduce taxes on your small business, and suddenly you'll kickstart everything right in the line. Everybody keeps talking about, Reagan sucked and everything else. So the liberals do, that he wasn't that good. All you have to do is compare the numbers between Obama and Reagan. just go right straight down the line. Yeah, things weren't rosy 5 years into Reagan, but they were a damn sight better, and people had a lot of hope for this. And I'm going to get in trouble with Mac again for swearing. Frank's just giving me the eye.
Yeah, it happens.
It happens sometimes. Here's somebody we forgot to mention. We need to mention.
Oh.
Mark Jacobs. Remember Ed Bull and you and I even talked about Mark Jacobs running for Senate. How he had a great run out. My brother Joe just texted and said that Mark Jacobs is running ads all over the place over there. So all over eastern Iowa.
Yeah.
So maybe his strategy is, go where the strong people aren't. Because this is a statewide race.
Yep.
Unlike the congressional race, you can lose Polk County and still win everything else, right? I mean, you can lose Polk.
That means you would have to pick up Lynn, Johnson, Dubuque, and Scott. I mean, you'd have to. In a statewide race, you would have to pick up all of the other big counties to supplement what you lose in Polk County.
Well, maybe that's his strategy, because I haven't seen a single commercial of his over here.
Well, I think if that's the case, and I'm glad that Joe texted you that. If that's the case, then what you could see is somebody trying to get out and define. And that means he's the only Republican candidate that's attempting to define his opponent on his opponent's own turf.
Yeah,
and that might be a good play.
Yeah. The other thing is Matt Schultz, our Secretary of State. Excuse me.
He said he's not doing anything. He likes being Secretary of State. I thought.
Well, I was just reading on the Iowa Republican.
Isn't that what you said?
Yeah. Yeah, except I was just reading on the Iowa Republican. And these guys, like them or hate them, really it's a pretty good website if you want to, the ins and outs of Iowa politics. I mean, besides us here, but we do have focus on other things as well.
We do.
Secretary of State said that he's strongly considering a run and will make an announcement no later than next week.
That's surprising.
That's surprising to me too,
especially because he has gotten so much criticism from all of the big statewide guys like Tom Miller and other Democrats and some Republicans for his voter ID or his voter fraud initiative. That a lot of the folks that are pretty well respected have criticized him about that. I think that would be a pretty juicy thing for Braley to sink his teeth into. But maybe that doesn't matter as much. I don't know.
Well, he's going congressional, not Senate.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I misspoke. He's going into this. He's thinking
about the third. Okay.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. That may be why Brad's kind of waiting, is they're trying to discuss what's going to go on.
Well, I think Brad would take that spot over Matt Schultz would, don't you?
Here's the problem, and this is the honest to goodness truth, and you've seen it happen on my Facebook page. People attack me as a failed politician because I didn't win. Brad's going to have to face that same thing.
That's true.
Brad's going to have to face that same thing. Matt Schultz has run once. Brad's ran, I don't know how many times he's run for stuff.
Well, but I mean, who was the Secretary of State before Matt Schultz? I thought Matt Schultz ran pretty much unopposed.
No, I can't remember who it is off the top of my head, but everybody thought he didn't stand a chance until he started beating the drum of voter registration reform.
Well, I don't think that really helped him though.
I think it did. I think it solidified the right pretty much. You have to keep in mind that, it's, we always think about Chicago politics and how corrupt that is. That's conservatives look at Democrats and always go, that's always possible because Chicago politics is a history of corruption. And at least in Iowa, we talk about that, whether you want to believe it or not.
We're in Iowa though, right?
We're still in Iowa, but still, that's the largest big city around, So besides Kansas City and
Minneapolis and all the other ones, but I mean Chicago.
But
I don't think that we're influenced by Chicago at all in Des Moines or in Iowa, like whatsoever. The only thing that's influenced by Chicago in the slightest bit are the bars in Iowa City. And that's not a knock on Chicago. That's a guy that went to college in Iowa City who had to deal with a lot of kids from Chicago or the suburbs when he was going to bars when I was in school. All I'm saying.
That's true. So, I mean, Matt Schultz, if Matt Schultz and Brad Zahn both get in it, I don't think that's going to bode well for the Republican Party at all. I think it's, because they're both powerhouses. I think Brad could outraise Matt. Particularly here. I mean, Brad is tremendously popular out in the wealthy districts of Dallas. And
we want
Polk County.
don't throw stones. We want him back on. Brad, Senator Zahn's an everyman, and everybody knows it. We love having you on, Senator.
And that's true. That's true. But I'm just talking about when I go out, because I don't talk too much on the south side. I talk a lot up on the west side. People love them. They love them a lot. So anyway, well, my son's just calling, so he's telling me it's time to go. But anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week. If you have any suggestions of topics that you want our opinions on or want us to talk about, send me or Blake something on Facebook. He's obviously Blake Lubinas. Am I Doc and Lefty?
No, you're Pat Bertrosh.
I'm Pat Bertrosh.
But if they go to the Doc and Lefty Facebook page, they'll get one of us.
Yep, that's right, docandlefty.com, because I keep forgetting we have
a website. It's a really beautiful website. Oh, my goodness.
We have to blog. All right, thanks everybody for tuning in. Bearded Frank, thanks for showing up.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Thank our sponsors. Cheers.
These guys, both of them.
Love these guys. Get over here. Love both of them.